Do you ever have the feeling that everything is sort of starting to look the same? Like everywhere you go, you're like, no, wait, sorry, that's not the way. Like every place you go feels familiar, like there's no real identity in any specific place anymore. No, this is also wrong. It's that feeling of arriving in a city that you've never been in before and recognizing like its layout or its buildings, and yeah, it's probably this way. Do we live in such a globalized world that we are losing track of the local? Like losing track of the identity of a place? Of the details in places? Maybe like we're even losing a sense of place? Hold on, wasn't that on the other side before? I know I've seen that before. Let me quiz you real quick. Do you recognize these cities? That was probably not too difficult for most of you. But let's try with these ones instead. Any guesses? These are probably harder. Maybe you even got the continents completely wrong. But these are for sure a slightly biased selection. The skyscrapers of financial centers are obviously similar all across the globe. And if I took photos from other parts of the city, you would get much more local detail. But you would probably not be able to pinpoint where this McDonald's is located from this one or this one. Sure, there are some signage and language clues and all the other clues that you can pick up on, and that would make you a good GeoGuessr player. But the point is that if you throw yourself into a random street somewhere in the world, it is hard to tell where you are. McDonald's opened its first restaurant outside the US in 1967, and in 1975 it operated in 19 nations and territories. Today, they are present in more than 100 nations. Subway is also present in over 100 nations, and Starbucks in 80. KFC takes the win here with locations in more than 150 nations. Out of the 50 fast food restaurant chains with the most locations globally, 39 are from the US. This is certainly an example of Americanization. And it's not exclusive to food, it's the same for clothing, or cars, or technology. So is considering the Oscars the main movie award in the world, even though it only recognizes Hollywood movies in all but one category. The Western, and the American in particular, domination of the global culture is profound. But let us move back to our city street. Buildings are often criticized from the general public, at least new ones are. In the early 1900s, the rise of modernism in architecture meant buildings were built with less regard to the surrounding, with less regard to nature, to the street, and to the people. They all started to look quite the same. With the rise of the car, suburban homes were built en masse, and they too all started to look the same. The same thing happened to rural homes eventually. Current day building trends are better and more in sync with its environment than back then. But it's not like the problem has gone away. not the least because buildings tend to live for a long time. But this street is still a place, for sure. There are people here that shop and travel to work and socialize and eat and visit as tourists. But what about this place? Marc Augé wrote in 1992, "If a place can be defined as a relational, historical, and concerned with identity, then a place which cannot be defined as relational or historical or concerned with identity will be a non-place." And these non-places are all around us. You most likely even visited a few today. An airport is a great example. There are still some geographical clues here, but it is mostly just present in signage. And even here, local languages are, at best, available side by side with a universal English. The size of the signs, the iconography, the fonts, the restaurants available, the layout of the airport, the numbering of the runways, the airplane models, the flooring, the lighting, the seating, the cleaning routines, the staff clothing, the materials, the smells. They are close to always the same, no matter in what city you are. In Brazil, in China, in Ethiopia, in Australia. And there are more places like this. A motorway, a train car, a mall, a hotel, a hospital, a fast food restaurant, a grocery store. But it is not just city centers. It is the suburban street. It's the industrialized, endless farms. It is the monoculturally planted forest. They all have this strange similarity, no matter where in the world you are. A similarity so strange, but so common, we no longer think about it. To some extent, this is just a fundamental building block of a globalized economy. No one wants their pilot to have to switch between hundreds of national systems for runway numberings and tower radio frequencies. This form of standardization has helped increase efficiency and safety. And navigating an airport that is planned in a similar way that you're used to is very practical. But the question is if something gets lost with this globalization. Another term used for similar places to this is junk spaces, a term coined by the Dutch architect Rem Koolhaas. He writes, "Junk space is the residue mankind leaves on the planet. Junk space is what remains after modernization has run its course, or more precisely, its fallout." Much of these places are centered around consumption. It is places built up to make us spend our money. The mall might do this better than any other place. It is a place of chain stores you recognize, of food courts that cater to all tastes, of all services to facilitate your visit. Sometimes it also offers more far-reaching services than just restrooms and Wi-Fi. It might be home to banks, gyms, post offices, movie theaters, hotels, aquariums, and why not a ski slope? In this way, the mall is a perfect example of a location that lacks in sense of place. And it is also a location that lacks a sense of time. No clocks or windows to the outside. The use of mirrors and strong lighting give the feeling of timelessness. A place that is released from the problems with the surrounding nature, traffic, or city street. But aren't we moving away from physical shopping, fulfilling more and more of our needs online? Certainly. But maybe there is no greater example of a non-place than the internet. Here we see English taking over smaller languages. We see the cultural differences disappearing. And the internet culture is, well, not just Western anymore, certainly global. And when it comes to hardware and software, the few dominating manufacturers certainly make our digital environment more of a non-place than an airport could ever dream of. I am sometimes guilty of thinking animals are more mobile than they actually are. Maybe it's a result of migratory birds and large aquatic mammals making journeys across and between continents that bring this on. But most animals are limited in their geographical spread, and indeed in the mobility of individuals. If we go back hundreds of millions of years, the supercontinent Pangaea had a much lower biodiversity due to fewer isolated areas. Since the breakup of the tectonic plates of the Earth around 200 to 100 million years ago, most species has stayed on one continent, one climate zone, or even on just one little tiny island, and developed from there. Rarely did any species break out from their geographical prison, until one species made it possible for many more. Elizabeth Kolbert describes this development in the sixth extinction. Trains, cars, boats and planes made travel possible for humans and any animal or plant that could hitchhike with them, to cross national borders, to cross climate zones, to cross continents, and to cross hemispheres. This is a big part in the high levels of species extinction we are seeing today. While still far away, the Earth is more and more becoming a place where a few successful species of plants and animals are becoming invasive all across the planet and pushing locally established species to extinction. A place that could be described as the new Pangaea. Basically, we run the risk of not just globalizing the human spaces on Earth, but also nature itself. So, what to make of all this? Well, firstly, I think it's important to note that much of this development has brought on a hugely beneficial development for humans. Global standardization is a fundamental part of our economic system and is something we are enjoying every day to a much higher extent than we think. A global economy has brought about many great environmental problems, but it also hosts many possible solutions. It seems to be a very basic human need to fit in, to not stand out from the group. Maybe this is playing even at a global level. Nations want to look and feel like the nations that we feel are more successful than ourselves. Coca-Cola is available basically anywhere in the world, because they as a company have succeeded in pushing its drink as the more sophisticated alternative to water or milk or any other locally produced beverage. In a way, maybe this brings us closer together. Today we have much more in common with people on the other side of the world than we did 50 or 100 years ago. But there is nothing saying that we can't put our own personal mark on the global. There is nothing saying that it wouldn't be good for us to value the local a little bit more. Whether that local is your home, your street, your surrounding nature, or your city. Sometimes I feel like getting out in the world without the aid of TripAdvisor or Street View is just better for us. I think there is a basic human instinct to lay back and accept what is decided for us somewhere else. After all, that's why most of us don't live in direct democracies, right? It is a part of the specialization of human labor that make us trust experts to make decisions that affect all of us, but are best made collectively. But it is certainly also a basic human instinct to explore the world around us. And if everything is available everywhere, and all the places look the same, we are taking something away from us. But to quote Koolhaas, an entire space can come unstuck through the non-conformity of just one of its users. In other words, don't be afraid to use spaces in unintended ways, especially non-places. It might just be that one push needed to resurrect detail and identity, to make it a place again. Thank you for watching.